You walk into a room and trip on the edge of the carpet. It's small, barely a stumble. Nobody even turns their head. But for the rest of the night, you can't stop replaying it. You're convinced everyone saw. You imagine them whispering about it later, laughing quietly, filing it away as the thing you'll always be remembered for. Almost none of them noticed, and the ones who did forgot within seconds. This isn't a personality flaw, it isn't anxiety, and it isn't vanity. The real answer is far stranger than that. Your brain runs a constant, invisible miscalculation about how much space you occupy in other people's minds. Psychologists have a name for it, and they proved it with a T-shirt. In the late 1990s, a researcher named Thomas Gilovich, working with colleagues Victoria Medvec and Kenneth Savitsky, wanted to test something simple. How accurately do people predict how much others notice them? They designed an experiment that sounds almost too simple to matter. A college student was asked to put on a plain white T-shirt with a large image of Barry Manilow printed on the front. Not a cool shirt, not an ironic shirt, just an oddly embarrassing one chosen specifically because it wasn't something a typical student would want to be seen wearing. The student then walked into a room full of other students and sat down for a few minutes. Afterward, the researchers asked the wearer one question. Out of everyone in that room, how many people do you think noticed the shirt? The students wearing the shirt guessed on average that about half the room had clocked it. Then the researchers asked the actual people in the room whether they'd noticed. The real number was less than half of what the wearer had guessed. Most people in that room hadn't registered the shirt at all. They'd been thinking about their own hair, their own conversation, their own slightly too tight shoes. Gilovich and his colleagues called this the spotlight effect, the tendency to believe you're at the center of everyone else's attention, when in reality, you're barely on their radar. Why would your brain be so confidently wrong about something this basic? Because there's only one perspective your brain has ever had access to: yours. You have spent every waking moment of your entire life living inside your own point of view, watching your own embarrassing moments unfold in vivid, inescapable detail. You've never once seen the world through someone else's eyes, so your brain quietly assumes that your experience of yourself is roughly the same intensity as everyone else's experience of you. It isn't, not even close. Think about your own attention for a second. Right now, how much mental space are you spending thinking about a stranger's outfit from 3 days ago? Probably none. Your mind is almost entirely occupied by your own concerns, your own to-do list, your own minor anxieties. Everyone else's mind works exactly the same way, which means the amount of thought they're spending on your trip step, your slightly wrong word choice, your bad hair day is much closer to zero than you'd ever guess. This mismatch has deep roots, and they go back further than any modern classroom. For most of human history, you lived in small groups where social standing genuinely mattered for survival. Being noticed, judged, or excluded by your group wasn't just uncomfortable. It could mean losing access to food, protection, or a mate. In that environment, a brain that overestimated how closely others were watching you wasn't malfunctioning. It was playing it safe. A slight overreaction to social risk cost very little. Constantly worrying that people were judging you meant you stayed careful, stayed likable, stayed inside the group's good graces. But underestimating social risk, walking around genuinely oblivious to how you were perceived, could get you quietly pushed out of the tribe that kept you alive. So evolution built you a system that leans hard in one direction. When in doubt, assume you're being watched. Assume you're being judged. It's a cheap insurance policy against a very expensive outcome. The problem is that modern life almost never delivers that expensive outcome anymore. Nobody is going to exile you from your friend group because you had spinach in your teeth for 10 minutes at lunch. But your brain doesn't know that. It's still running ancient software, calibrated for a world of 40 people who knew your entire life story, applied now to a world of strangers who will forget your face by tomorrow. Here's the twist, though, and it's a strange one. The spotlight effect doesn't just apply to your embarrassments. It applies to your achievements, too. You might assume that people noticed your new haircut, your sharp comment in a meeting, Your clever joke that landed perfectly. Most of the time, they didn't notice that either, at least not with anywhere near the intensity you imagine. The spotlight in your head is bright and constant. The spotlight other people are actually holding is dim, flickering, and pointed almost entirely at themselves. Researchers have found this pattern shows up again and again across dozens of situations. People overestimate how much others notice their emotional state after an argument. They overestimate how memorable their contribution to a group conversation was. They overestimate how obvious their nervousness is during a presentation, right down to sweaty palms and a shaky voice that, from the audience's seat, is almost always invisible. Once you know this, something interesting happens. The knowledge itself becomes a kind of quiet relief. The next time you say something awkward in a conversation and immediately feel your stomach drop, you can remember the Barry Manilow T-shirt. You can remember that half the room didn't even see it, and the other half forgot it within the hour. Your mistake, statistically, is living rent-free in your head, and almost nowhere else. This doesn't mean other people never judge you. Of course, they sometimes do. But the volume of that judgment, the sheer amount of mental real estate you assume you're occupying in strangers' minds, is wildly inflated by a brain that has only ever known one point of view, its own. There's a modern mirror to this that's worth sitting with. Think about how much energy you've spent worrying about how you looked in a photo nobody scrolled past for more than a second. Think about the outfit you almost didn't wear because you were sure people would stare. Think about the sentence you rehearsed 20 times in your head before sending a text, terrified of how it might be read, when the person on the other end read it once and moved on with their day. That's the spotlight effect quietly running in the background of nearly every social decision you make. So the next time you trip on a carpet in a crowded room and your face goes hot and you're certain everyone saw, take a breath. Somewhere in that room, someone else just tripped on their own invisible carpet inside their own head, certain that you were the one watching them. You weren't. You were too busy watching yourself.